So Maria, tell me a little bit about this is a question that I ask every single brand. What's the big idea for Fungible?
Sure. Yeah. So the big idea is to add incredible functional mushrooms to dark chocolate. So what a lot of people don't know is that dark chocolate itself is a superfood, and with the addition of the functional mushrooms, it's just super food.
Hmm, interesting. Okay. Now you mentioned like obviously the ingredients itself of the superfood. Can you tell me a little bit about when you did start the brand? I mean, I'm guessing you're going to change a little bit, as you go along in the journey. But when you did start it, like what were some of the things or mainly ingredients that you thought, you know what, this is something we gotta keep. We can't just like put it out.
Yeah, so I'd say actually it's rather kind of the opposite, right? It's like how simple can we make this? And so really it started with we wanted a recipe that was really bare bones, like only the essentials, which is cacao butter, coconut sugar, which is our sweetener, and then the functional mushroom extract. So those are literally our four ingredients, and we don't ever plan on adding anything else to it or changing any of it just because I mean, we have a commitment to super simple ingredients and it's been that way since the beginning and it's going to keep being that way.
Okay. So in the beginning, can you tell me a little bit about how you started the company? What was maybe like that thing that, switched on? You were like, I gotta do this. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I've always really been into mushrooms and nature. They've always fascinated me. And it all started in high school. And then, I just kind of like time passed and I knew I wanted to do something with nature then. But then I feel like I kind of like grew up a little, right? And I was like, okay, well, that's just kind of like a dream. Now I have to get, a more traditional job. But then when that documentary came out, Fantastic Fungi, I watched it and it was like, oh my goodness, like it brought back this part of me that I feel that I'd forgotten about, which was really like aligned and really centered on the things that mattered to me, instead of kind of like the things that I felt I had to do to be successful. And so at that moment, I told myself, okay, I 100% want to do something with mushrooms. So I got into thinking about maybe cultivating them, maybe getting into making extracts like at a local level in St. Pete. Um, and then one day I was just eating dark chocolate at my dining room table, like I do every single day after pretty much every meal. And I was just thinking and reflecting and eating the chocolate. And then I was like, wait, I could do functional mushroom infused dark chocolate. And so from that moment, I was like, oh my gosh, that's such a cool idea. And so I got all the ingredients and I made the first bars myself, to kind of test out the recipe and even see if it was viable. Was it going to taste good? Was it going to taste like too mushroomy? How was it going to work out? And then I found a manufacturer that could help me do that.
Nice. And when you started, I'm guessing everything was like kind of like made at home, bootstrapped and whatnot. When you did start to maybe transition yourself into maybe, as you were saying, getting a manufacturer, a factory, what were some of the things you wanted to keep in mind that you may or may not have thought would have been valuable, but like at the time you're like, this is super important that we do. And then as you went along the journey, you're like, maybe I shouldn't have done this, maybe I should have done this, anything like that.
Yeah. Well, I'd say like I go a lot based on vibes. And I remember when I was looking for a manufacturer, I was trying so hard to find someone that would work with us just because a lot of these companies have extremely high minimums. And, we were just starting. Like, I didn't know if this was going to work out or not, people were going to like it or not. And so I do remember, like, I was able to get a hold of two that were willing to work with me. One of them just had a really nice vibe about him and we talked a lot and he was very like and it's his own company, like he was the head of the company, but he was like super invested in making this work out for us. And he decided, he accepted to take us on because he saw that it had potential. And it definitely took, a few phone calls where I was like, hey, like, look, like, let's try it out, like this huge potential, like functional mushrooms are the future, you have no other products like this, let's make it work, like we'll figure it out. And the first bars were super expensive. Then with volume, it got a little better. Um, I'd say it's interesting because I mean, when you ask about like what would I have done differently or what wouldn't I have done, I think like there isn't anything in particular because I really feel like I try to make the most out of every twist and turn where I'm like, like this setback, it's a part of the journey. It was a part of it, so I wouldn't want to not live it because now I'm stronger. you know, and so there's that whole aspect of it. But I think in general, um, being less focused on like perfection, you know, and on like so committed to my vision of like, okay, I'm not going to do it unless it is exactly how I envision it, has gotten in the way of some of the growth.
Mhm.
But now I'm like, I'm working through that and just seeing as, you know what, like I just have to roll with it. And those are little details that are going to get figured out throughout the journey.
Mhm.
And not everything has to be perfect, which is like so cliche, right? You know, but it really is so important to keep that in mind.
Got it. And I would love to talk about like now the future, but a little bit before going on to that part, like the big elephant in the room. And I think you talked about it a little bit, but I wanted to ask, like, even when you started out originally, before you even had the idea of like mushroom chocolate, why mushrooms? Like, what made you be so into nature, going outside? Like, what made you want to be into those things?
I just grew up that way. I think but it's weird because yes, my parents really appreciate nature. So my dad, he studied marine biology, and when I was growing up, like he would always, you know, kind of take me out like on walks or, you know, we'd go to the beach and we would explore. And it was like exploring nature and exploring like all these different animals and plants. And he just taught me to be very respectful and have like a reverence for pretty much like anything in life, you know. And so I think that that deep kind of love, reverence, appreciation for nature then kind of translated to like, okay, now we have these incredible plants that are so promising that can do so much, but it's right at the beginning. Like a lot of these people, you know, they a lot of, I mean, there's barely any studies about this even, you know, and
Yeah.
like I am convinced that mushrooms are the key to many things, like the solution to many problems, whether it has to do with like mental health, physical health, the environment, you know, with like microremediation, which is, you know, using mushrooms to clean up the environment of pollutants. And so there's just a lot of different avenues. I think like so my nickname in high school was Tree Girl. Because
Awesome.
I would really, I would hug trees, I would like touch plants like whenever I could. I was just very inquisitive about that kind of stuff, and I think most people weren't, and so they definitely took notice, and it's just been a very deep part of me
For
since
sure.
the beginning.
Yeah, and it's awesome to hear. I mean, outside of just like business talk and everything, that like more people just like you are like going on, like going with trees. Like I would like just me too. I was in the Boy Scouts. Like we used to like be out so much like camping and trips and all that sort of stuff. So I was like, you know what, it's important to have fun, but you also got to like take care of nature and just put yourself in a position where, I mean, if you see something of trash, pick it up. Or if you see a plant, you know, they would even make us like it was weird. I don't know if people had never done it, we were crazy, but they would make us like talk to trees. They're like, just
Mhm.
appreciate this tree. I'm like, well, I mean, I guess I got to do it. But you know, moving forward now that I'm in business and everything, and I saw, you know, you guys and how it's important for you guys to like, you know, with mushrooms and now you're hearing your backstory. It's very important. So moving forward now, can you tell me a little bit about how many stores you're in now? You know, what kind of the plans are now, where everything's kind of going on in the business?
Yeah, so we are currently in 22 stores across 7 states in mostly like the eastern US.
Mhm.
And we have really big plans to expand this year. We are launching, so right now we have 3 chocolates that are out. We launched with the lion's mane about 2 years ago, and then we came out with a turkey tail and a cordyceps. So we've got lion's mane for focus, turkey tail for immunity, cordyceps for energy, and then we're launching reishi for relaxation and chaga for vitality, as well as like little mini bars.
Mhm.
So that's, I mean, that's we're launching 7 SKUs in the next 3 months. So that's going to be really big. And with that, we also have partnerships to really start pushing to go national
Mhm.
and get into more retailers. So I'm thinking not so much like traditional retailers, you know, like we're going more for like independents, like alternative.
Why is
Um,
that?
hmm?
Why is that?
So the barrier to entry is just a lot less. And also for our kind of product, it's very niche. You know, like I was doing research recently and I saw something about how like the North American functional mushroom market, I think it was about 600 million or something, but it's predicted to be 1 billion. I think it was by 2030. but that's nothing. That is so small for market size, which
Yeah.
really put into perspective like, wow, we're really at the beginning of this. And so, it's just, although I can like kind of push, to try and make it more mainstream, it's easier to go into avenues where people already know about these products, like kava bars. Or they're like, oh yeah, functional mushrooms, of course.
Yeah.
Like little local boutique coffee shops, they know these things. And so it's just a lot easier to grow that way. But then also one of my other targets is like smaller specialty chains, as well as like gyms, spas,
Yeah.
co-working spaces, boutique hotels, like that kind of vibe.
Yeah, for sure. And now that you're going into these places in 20, I saw the post you made on LinkedIn. I believe you're wanting to launch 5 bars, if I'm not mistaken, or 5 mini bars, anything like that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
So now that you're launching new products, right, moving forward, I'm guessing there's one or two things that for you guys, it's different in every business, but for you guys, may come very natural, like very easy. So if you look back into your own, business and Fungible, what are maybe some things that you find are very easy for you guys, or maybe not easy, but it's you're very passionate to do, and it doesn't take you guys too much time to do, if that makes sense.
Yeah. For me, it's selling and like building connections and business development, because I really like, aside from it being a product that I am selling, so to speak, I have an inner mission, which is to share the power of functional mushrooms which with as many people as possible. And so that really drives me because I have absolute belief in their power.
Yeah.
And so whenever, I'm in front of someone, my goal is like not so much to sell the chocolate, but to educate them on how incredible functional mushrooms are, which in turn sells the chocolate.
Yeah.
And so that's really where I think like my superpower comes in. And also I'm very curious about people. Like I love talking with people, making connections, like just that connection and interaction feels so fulfilling to me. I do think that it's interesting because the other side of this is like the part where I have struggled is with social media,
Mm,
which is like I'm so social and I like, that kind of thing so much, but not in a digital way.
yeah.
Like I love it when it's in person. I love going into a new store and like educating about the product or having like a Zoom call. But when it comes to like social media, I think we could have probably done a better job.
Sure.
Well, I could have done a better job, but now I have finally like handed that off to someone that's going to be managing it, and it is such a weight off my shoulders because it's so not my thing.
I was gonna say maybe it should be like Gary V. I don't know if you know him, like where he
Yeah.
has like a cameraman all the time. I think his name is D-Rock. So maybe that's gonna be the same for you guys, where you like,
Wow.
yeah, I don't know, maybe that's something in the
There'd
works.
be amazing moments. So there are moments sometimes that I'm just having like on my own or with my husband, and we're
Mm,
just talking, and then I reflect on like, wow, like what I just said right now or what just happened here
yeah.
would have been such an interesting thing to capture.
Mhm.
However, I feel like unless someone's got a camera on you at all times, it's always going to be performative.
Yeah.
When the moment that I just had was so natural. And that's the magic. That's what I wish could truly be captured. And so that's kind of, I guess, the thing that's like frustrating is the performative aspect of it.
Gotcha. Now, outside maybe social media, what are some things that maybe business wise you guys are like, man, this is a big elephant or like a big bone we have to like chew on. Like, what's something that you guys are like really trying to push? And I know you mentioned like getting to these stores, but anything else aside of that?
Yeah, the rising costs of things have been pretty
Yeah.
difficult just
Yeah.
because quite literally, chocolate, like the chart for cacao was like this and then it was like this.
Yeah.
And then and literally I was in that spot of like 2 to 3 months when, it was about 5.25 a pound and then it jumped to $13 a pound. And so what does that mean for production? That we can make approximately 3 times less
Yeah.
for the same price. And so that's where it's like, holy cow. So, with this iteration, we are increasing our prices. We just have to. Like,
Yeah.
I wanted to resist it, but we have to.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I'd say that's one thing that hit pretty hard,
For sure.
but we have adjusted and we're good now.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. So moving forward, right? You want to get into all these stores. Maybe what's some of the plans you have outside of just moving into these stores? Maybe what are some things that you're like, by the end of 2025, if we got this one or two things done, that's all that matters. Like those are the two biggest goals.
Yeah. I definitely want to get into all the industrious,
Okay,
like those high-end co-working spaces.
sure.
Definitely want to get into industrious. I absolutely want to be in California. I know that would be a huge market for us.
Yeah.
Um, what else? I would be so we also got a fulfillment partner because I
Okay.
was like packaging everything, we had a storage, and so we were like going packaging orders and then sending them out. But then with this one, we actually have a partner that's going to be doing that. So again, I could just focus on like running things in the business and business development. Um, we have a distributor that we recently met with that has 450 stores in Florida
Oh
that
wow.
is super excited about our chocolate bars. So, I mean, really making that happen would be incredible. I mean, they've already said, hey, when you get them, like, let's get started.
Mhm.
So, it's all these things. We'll see if they pan out.
Yeah,
Like in business, as you know too, like there's all these opportunities, right? And not everything comes to fruition, but at least I'll know that if I was aligned, like I did my best,
for sure.
it's gonna go well. But yeah, I'd be exceedingly satisfied with those goals met by the end of 2025.
For sure. And maybe for somebody that's just starting out, maybe not even the CPG, well, sure, in the CPG space, but in generally in business, like when looking back at when you started out, even in the thick of it, and, when you just started the company, even till now, like what are some, maybe like what's one piece of advice you would give to somebody that's just starting out in their entrepreneurial journey?
Well, it's interesting because I feel like being naive in some way is helpful
In what way?
because like when I started, I thought this would be so much easier. Like I literally thought, okay, this company is gonna blow up in 2 years. Like that'll be it. This is amazing. But
Mhm.
then there's like all these little inner workings and inner factors. Now I'm like, okay, this company is gonna be amazing.
Sure.
Like truly what I envision it to be in like 5 to 10 years.
Yeah.
Like I've accepted that, but before, when the 2 year thing wasn't like looking like it was gonna happen, I got completely crushed.
Mhm.
Like it was the worst that I'd felt in my life. And so I think like it's best that you don't really know how hard it's going to be because you'll probably not do it, you know? And so it's just helpful to have like that fresh perspective of like, oh, I can do it, like this is gonna be great. And then you'll have your ego like checked, and that's just how it's gonna have to be. Like you're gonna be faced with things that are gonna be really hard. They're gonna try you, and then you just have to decide if you're gonna rise above or if you really can't handle it. But the pressure is immense.
Yeah, to say the least.
Yeah.
Got it. Well, before like we wrap up everything, I just wanted to ask one more thing. Is there any type of quote or a saying or maybe like short poem that you found very inspiring to you in those difficult times when you were like, man, you know what? It's a very daring task that we have to do right now.
Yeah, I think it's a song
Oh,
that I remember from high school. Do you know Pendulum?
Connor.
The drum and bass? Okay. Well, they have a song, it's called Hold Your Color.
Okay.
And that song, since the moment I heard it at like probably 14, I still listen to it sometimes. And I still think about like, hold your color. Like, no matter what happens, no matter who tries to take it away, no matter who pushes you down, hold your color. And I like to think about that a lot in like, be true to yourself, stay aligned, and no matter what, like you've got your back.
Got it.
Mhm.
Listen, Maria, it was a pleasure having you on. I'm gonna see if we could play that song in the outro so we have it like being all grammatical and
We
stuff.
should.
But
That's so neat.
in the meantime, it was a pleasure having you. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much.